All right. Peigee, if you're up for it, I would like to talk to you a little bit about your experience with the Dao. So, can you tell us a little bit about Dao and you? What has been your journey?
Thank you for asking. I heard this book, ancient Chinese book, when I was a child. But actually, when I got that book, I already well over 50. I was already in Australia. Initially, I bought the book from a Chinatown in Sydney. And I just curious, I read through, but I don't understand much and just put it back. And a few years later, when I come across multiple English translation, actually I was looking for to understand the meaning of the Dao De Jing. I thought English language is pretty precise. So I want to understand the Dao De Jing through the English translation. So that's how I started. I want to understand the Dao De Jing through the language that is more precise, more complete. And after reading numerous translations, I realized they are actually not very close to the original text. Mm-hmm. Then I look at the Chinese scholars, the commentators. Mm-hmm. I also feel there is a gap. Mm-hmm. It's actually a big gap. There is some fundamental, the thing is not right. So I started my translation journey myself. I want to settle down myself and not to try to just browsing it. I want to understanding every word of it, because that's how you can translate. So I started that. I have going through a few rounds like Jason and all my did. And my realization is that, in fact, the approach to translation is exactly I should follow the book's teaching about Wu Wei. Meaning, actually, the way to translate is not overly interpreting. You know, often when we interpret, because we're not sure about the word, you what exactly it means. So when you can't translate, you interpret. And when you interpret, you try to expand. When you expand, you inevitably bring your own understanding, own experience into it. Now, sometimes it's necessary, particularly if you want to bring it to the English readers. But it also have the potential to deviate from the real teaching of the original text. So at the very early on, I have set a guidance of a translation. I want to be faithful. I want to maintain the fidelity. You know, it's not about how to translate beautifully. It is about translate as it is. Now, easy to say, but it's very hard to get it done. Particularly the original text, full of metaphor. And it has the figurative speech. It has the semantics. All those things really, if you translate without those, you sort of already missed up make the readers have the missed opportunity to understand fully by themselves. So when I approach to my translation, I want to be faithful, not only try to maintain the underlying meaning, but also the way the original text is delivered, meaning about the metaphor, the semantics, all those things, as much as I can. Sometimes impossible. Like the one I mentioned about the greatest square has no corner. This is very much based on the line itself, but it doesn't carry the underlying meaning. But if I translate the underlying meaning, then it sort of lost the original text, the originality, and for people to actually to think deeper, they may find that there is some the further meaning than I have interpreted. So that's how my approach to the translation is, to try to be faithful as it is, if it's possible. In reality, like Jason mentioned, it's only still a interpretation.
Wonderful, thank you. So I want to ask you a few questions because I think this is very important, because what each language is rests on the entire culture, entire set of context, not just set of concepts, but entire context and traditions and ways of thinking, lores, stories, all of that. And all of that is there very simply in that the mother language in which it exists. My experience with this is one trying to do some translation in the context of our Gita meetups from an author called Jnaneshwar, who was a 13th century Marathi writer, the first person to write in a vernacular about Gita. It's just beautiful, but it's 13th century. It's like the language is between Marathi and Sanskrit. It's Prakrit. And I can read a little bit of Sanskrit. 85% I can read, and then Marathi. So I had to kind of figure out and translating it into English so that it has to actually work in English as well. So that's one data point I have. The second data point is I'm deeply interested in the New Testament. So I'm looking at when I go back to the Greek, actually the richness that is there in the Greek is just so much more, not really captured fully. And it is really, I feel for the translator, because each word actually carries with it a lot of connotations, not just denotations. It's not just the direct meaning of it, but the entire, this aura of connotations, which are very, very subtle. And they're all chosen very deliberately, one next to the other, to produce a certain effect. Now, so it's like this entire network that is being generated in the mind when the native speaker or native reader is listening to it. Now, how do you take that and move it to another language? And as you're saying, fidelity is everything. You don't want to, it's very easy for the translator to insert himself and say that, okay, this is what I think. But that's not the purpose of translation. You have to be humble in the face of what you're looking at and say, what is it? What is it? What is it? And how can I say this to another person? So it is a genuinely hard task. And when you do that, I think you get something that you can never get if you don't translate. Because it's like, what I have found is that it's like this. I'm holding this with one hand. When I'm trying to translate, I'm trying to hold it with another hand. Each of the fingers is a concept, and they are different. So the grasp that I have on this is different. And as a result of having both, I understand my grasp on this becomes more, because it's kind of interlocking in a different way. So it is truly, it is a labor of love. You really need to love the work that you're translating, and you need to make the choices. You said something very beautiful of saying, use the wu wei, because that's the method of it. So you need to keep it. It's not about saying, okay, nobody should be able to blame me for doing something, but in terms of how do I capture the spirit of this? It is so hard to capture it in another language. Is this speaking to you? Is this making any sense to you?
Absolutely. What you're saying is absolutely. I think what I realized later on is, our conscious mind constantly have the intellect and our awareness interplay. Now, you're right. You have to engage actual something to actually come to the realization. What it really means is that awareness within us is actually knows everything, and yet only make us aware what we need to know. So our intellect is a bit different because we have a desire. We want to know more than we need to know, so we engage our intellect. But then it involves the energy. And also you have no confidence whether your intellect will produce the right answer. Now, my approach to this is that you start with intellect, you start to look at the words. And if you demonstrate enough that you need to know that word meaning, then observing your awareness, the inspiration will come to you. Will tell you actually this word is actually mean this, it can also mean this, you know, particularly in ancient time. And also you look at the other parts of the book. And so there is a multiple iteration. And then the more iteration you go, more deeper you understand. And then you will suddenly you go back to a particular the phrase that you translate you're not comfortable with. You feel there is something missing, and then so they all interconnected, right? Just like the nature is, everything is interconnected. So the iteration is very important, and that's why I feel the actually the understanding the language itself is not that important. All the challenge in relation to the classic text, missing the object or subject or verb, or each character can play a different part of the speech. Those challenges pale in comparison to the spiritual awareness down the one needs to have. So I encourage everyone, even you don't know the original text. Nowadays with the internet, you can actually embark the translation yourself, because you can easily get a Google to find the each character can have you know what sort of meaning, and then you sit down and think, and then waiting for the inspiration, and they will come to you. And in
Wonderful.
fact, you can even using like the chat GPT to that's something I later found, but generally it doesn't help much in the translation, but it can you know refine the words,
No,
but
absolutely.
also give you a starting point.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite translations, no, not one, but my absolute favorite translation of Dao De Jing is by somebody who doesn't know Chinese, Ursula Le Guin. But the thing is that she grew up on the knee of her father, who loved Dao De Jing. So she grew up, starting from age 2, listening to Dao De Jing, not just listening to it, but her father living it. And she actually has an aesthetic sensibility. You have to be a poet in order to do the translation. You have to kind of feel it and be able to express that. And it will be different. It's not literal translation. It is spiritual translation. It is you're trying to get the meaning of it, and you're getting it across. And so absolutely. And thank you for encouraging people. Folks, if you would like to ask questions, please go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Let's do questions, because I really want people to know what is involved in translation. So let's go with Mark, followed by Joe. Mark.
Thanks. And PJ, I really thought your use of Wu Wei as a methodological principle of translation was interesting. And Wu Wei, it's likely that perhaps not everyone here is that familiar with the term. And I'll just drop something like creative letting be, or just going with the flow in some sort of sense. I'm wondering if Wu Wei can also be a methodological principle just for reading it, And then beyond that, whether you think it was a methodological principle in the writing of the Dao De Jing.
Thanks for asking. Wu Wei is really the center message of the book. And the way I understand Wu Wei, I translate it as a non-doing Wu Wei. For people already know Wu Wei, there is no need any further translation. But for people are not familiar with the term Wu Wei, I introduced the non-doing. What they're doing here really in ancient time, it is truly also used as a doing, but mainly it's talking about the mental effort. When we do something, there are certain things that require the mental effort. So there is a common phrase, the 作为. The first character is really act, a physical act, the bodily act. The second one is really about a mental motivation. You act for what? Now, that's the common teaching, particularly from parents or society. When you do something, you need to know what you try to achieve. Be motivated. That's the common teaching. This book is actually telling us that you should act spontaneously without motivation. Now, why is that? Lao Tzu actually, the whole book is written in such a way. His knowing is actually through the awareness, not through the intellect. We emphasize the knowledge. You acquire knowledge through intellect, through learning, right? But the Lao Tzu is telling you that's actually burdensome. And actually, you will realize you will never have enough to accumulate. Now, you already have a Tao within you, that awareness within you, that knows everything. It will let you know whatever you need to know. Why you need to, to seek something alternative, which will require great energy. And with no confidence whether that's a correct answer or not. So when Lao Tzu, he realized, like a I Ching, what I Ching is about. The I Ching is about realized everything has its form. Through abstraction, you can see the pattern, common pattern, right? Through the pattern, you can see the math. Now, when you see the math in everything, ordinary people like us, desires were arousing. They want to know, foretell, predict, because suddenly they see there is a rules they can utilize to predict. That's how the human society, the humankind, they started to eagerly engage in their intellect, their analytical mind, because they want to fulfill their desire to know more, to predict. And yet Lao Tzu see that everything has a math, not just certain phenomena. The miracle is everywhere. Now, the nature is such, everything is basically already moving what it should be there. So why we individual need to interfere? Why individual need to selectively act? When you selectively act for certain things that you see important, and you inevitably neglect the other part. And yet, Lao Tzu see everything plays a role. Everything is interconnected. So I see that the Wu Wei is about this. It is really about mindfulness.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Not attachment.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question is from Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Peigee, for doing this. I think you partially answered actually the question that I was going to raise, but one of the things that you were talking about was a little bit about over-interpreting, and how we can end up bringing our personal experience to interpretation. But in a way, I'm kind of a little bit perplexed a little bit in a sense that what is the Tao? You answered what the Tao is saying about knowledge, but what is it saying about truth? So, in the sense that you're interpreting something and you're saying we can overinterpret it, which would actually seem to indicate that there is a right way and a wrong way. And I always understood the Tao more or less being relative with no truth, that it's our personal experience, that it's more based on our intuition. And as you just said, like seeing patterns in things and understanding nature and how to flow with nature. So I guess my question is then, is there something like truth in the Tao, or and how would you relate that to what you were just saying about knowledge, and how would you relate that to overinterpretation?
Thank you for asking. I think that's a very good question. The language itself is naturally very dualistic. So my words can truly be interpreted as something favor one, not the other, particularly in over-interpretation. Now, I was referring to the guidance I set for myself in relation to being faithful, being giving the maximum opportunity for readers to think for themselves. If you present something as is, then they have the maximum opportunity to interpret. So it is based on that. I feel I don't want to overly interpret, but I see everything play is a role. There are different kind of translation needed. I actually like the Stephen Mitchell's translation a lot, and even though that I consider that interpretation, not translation, but it has a role to play. And it depends on what audience you're looking at. Although I put there does not have any particular set of audience in mind, but I do want to target for people who are really a researcher, who are really interested in what the original text is. So therefore, the sense of being a beautiful, being the comprehensible, all those things are not my top priority. So in short, to answer your question, I haven't answered your question about the truth. Let me come to that. This is truly it's a personal the philosophical question. Based on my understanding, or my understanding, my believing is very much influenced by this book, Dao De Jing, and also the Zen text. Now, I see that when it comes down to this manifested universe, the nature, there is no absolute truth, because everything is interchangeable and depends on the perspective. Now, is there a truth? Yes, even according to this book. The truth is the absolute. The Tao is the truth. There is people talking about that nothing ever exists, right? All we see is interconnected, is illusion. Now, I can see where they come from, but I regard it is neither exist nor does not exist. The fact is, from a logical point of view, if you see everything you see, everything you feel is existence are the illusion, then where this illusion come from? That illusion is actually testimony on something that is ultimately exists. that is always exists. That is the Tao. That is the source. Some people call it God. Some people call something, consciousness, self-nature, Brahman, all those things are really talking about the same thing. And like in responding to the observation by Guan about, there are people who have a similar understanding because from same teaching or from same school of thought. It's not necessary. To me, everyone possesses the common awareness, which is the Tao.
Wonderful. Excellent answer. Thank you. Next up is going to be Quan. Quan, please take your time. If you have comments, any thoughts, questions, whatever you want.
Well, first, I would like to say that I'm absolutely delighted that Peigee came tonight, because I did not have the same adventure in term with the Dao De Jing than him. Okay, because being someone more interested in psychology and in the mind precisely, I always understood the Dao De Jing, or the teaching of the I Ching, as being a teaching of the mind, because I was born in a Chinese traditional family, and I was being brainwashed in that from childhood. But what make me reflect more deeply, if I may say so, on the subject is that, having also a Western education in psychology and in medicine, I has always been intrigued by the reality of consciousness. Okay, in the sense that perfectly that for the scientific perspective, you have the atoms, you have matter, and from matter you have life, and from life you have consciousness. It's not the traditional perspective. Okay, the traditional perspective, either Chinese or Indian, is that you have pure consciousness first, after you have life, and after you have matter. Okay, so I would say that the older I get, I think that the second answer is closer to truth. Okay, because what Peigee said, that is there a truth? I would say that epistemologically, I see it as a triangle. Truth would be at the top vertex of the triangle. The left vertex would be myth, and the right vertex would be facts. When we go to the scientific endeavor, we go to facts. When we deal with psychology, mythology, history, we deal more with myth and facts. But the epistemological, what is truth precisely? Being also absorbed in meditation and Zen and all those stuff, I think that precisely what the Tao called the great silence, or the Indian tradition, either Hinduist or Buddhist, also call the great silence, is precisely that truth, that formless reality from which every phenomena would be, let's say, created. Okay, maybe it's a clumsy word, but would come from. Okay, and what I want to say too is about the idea of over-interpreting a text. When you have a goal-specific endeavor, I agree with Peigee that we can over-interpret, but if we take the perspective of the truth as explained by the Dao De Jing, I would say that the Dao De Jing, or any teaching of the great masters, is an invitation to playfulness, okay, to see life as a play. That life is beautiful. So in that sense, we can never over-interpret, because what we give as a version of what we understand is part of that great square having no corners. Okay, it's included in it. But if we have a specific goal, meaning preparing a translation for people having, let's say, linguistic or philological preoccupations, yes, there we have rules, and we play by the rules. Okay, and it goes back a little bit to some of our former discussions, that we say living in the society, we have to be we have to know the game. Okay, we have to know the social game, and that would be very. I would have never taught to my children that there's no game, okay? Because if I want them to survive in society, they have to know the social game. But I would say that there is another level of learning that precisely that the Tao Te Ching or the teaching of the Buddha or the deeper teaching of Confucianism, because I have the pretension to say that the deeper teaching of Confucianism is exactly the equivalent of the teaching of the Tao, is to learn the cosmic game. Okay, in that game, there is only playfulness. And I would say the difference maybe in the teaching of Confucianism and Taoism is that Confucianism would start with the social game and uplift you to the cosmic game. Or if I use the image of the hexagram, the lower trigram would be the social game and the upper trigram would be the cosmic game. And the teaching of the Tao Te Ching would teach you first the cosmic game, which is quite logical too, because we start our life when we were young, first by the cosmic game, because when you are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, you rather more in the cosmic game than in the social game. And according to psychology, when you start to speak, okay, because language is the first entrance into society, so around 2 years old for most people, you start to enter to the social game. So I would say that I'm not cool enough. When I taught my children, I did not dare to start with the cosmic game, to be frank with you, because I want them to survive in society. But for sure that I try to show them that after the social game, there is also a cosmic game. But I suppose that more skillful parents would dare to start with the cosmic game. I stop here.
Well, thank you, Quan. Peigee, you're welcome. This is a conversation, so you're welcome to comment on anything here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I sort of you can understand Guan's saying there are lots of it, and particularly the last part about the thinking in the big sense, in the the sense rather than the social side of things. Now I want to add that the language. The language is a man-made, and therefore the language has to be, when you use language, you have to engage your intellect. And the more, that's why the Lao Tzu was saying in the verse 5, I mentioned about the more words you utter, the less you convey. Because think about, when you speak, you have to engage your intellect to use the language. And when you use your intellect, you basically, your awareness is not in the play. So in the Christianity, Jesus talk about the God is in the cast of your body, right, as a king. This is actually similar in relation to when we understand awareness. Awareness is actually the king of our body. So whatever you engage your intellect, always remember who is the king. It is the awareness will really deliver you, will actually make you understand fully, all in the context, all in relation to the existence, right? So yes, our society is such that our parents, like myself, ego try to make my children to survive well in the society and try to feed them lots of knowledge. And the effect is actually quite opposite. Only when I stopped, teach them, and they flourished.
Thank you. Peigee, I want to follow up on one theme that Quan brought up, and that is of playfulness. because it's actually very similar to what you were saying about that, because it's like, the children have playfulness and they are unafraid of looking at what is going on, and they don't have preconceptions of it, another so would you like to talk a little bit more about kind of playfulness, kind of the attitude, you put it differently, but it's basically amounts to the same thing, is that you're trying to kind of deeply engage with something, but then letting yourself be free and to actually, because the Tao is in you. It's not just out there, it is in you, and you have to let it operate. So if you would like to comment on the playfulness part, please go ahead.
Yeah, under that context of playfulness, I guess it referred to creativeness. This is indeed reflected in children a lot, and because the children actually, they don't engage intellect as much as adults. They are very much really, this verse 40 is about, in my view, it is the weak, it is the young, growing one, utilize the Tao more fully than adults. This is actually matched to another sentence in the book, talk about, when things reach prime, they age, right? The things, age when they reach prime. When you think you're on top, you start to decline. Why? Because then you will actually not engage in Tao anymore, and therefore, without not along with the Tao, you perish, soon. That's the line has been repeated in the book. So although Tao is within all of us, but if you want to listen, pay attention to your awareness, and not ignoring your awareness, then you are still continually grow. You're still with the Tao. Only when you say, I've done it, I finished growing, and then you are, going down here.
Yeah, beautifully put, because the moment you say that, you're not focused on being aware, you're just focused on some result of your past awareness. So you're just focused on the fruits, you're focused on this 10,000 things that you have created, whether it is this 10,000 things outside or the ideas you've generated, it has the same effect. Wonderful. Next up is going to be Max.
I just want to add one more thing about, it's not just children are playful or creative, it's the artists.
Yes.
Artists, they are not streetwise, but they are very playful and very creative. And because they utilize awareness more than any ordinary people.
Wonderful, thank you. Next up is going to be Max, followed by Nick. Max.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say that I am an artist, so that's a fun segue. And I'm also a modal artist. I work in music. I've been playing piano very seriously since I was 7. I'm a photographer. I've been exhibited in galleries and been published in the New York Times. And recently, I've been considering food as an art form and been very involved in how we feed ourselves. And interestingly, the path to nutrition and proper nutrition is in the Tao. There's information there, the way, of how to feed ourselves for vitality and not just comfort. But there are so many things that I'm new to, and so many things that everyone has been talking about, and a couple things that I wanted to ask and also clarify. One thing, a question for Peigee is about going back to the I Ching, about understanding the math, once you start understanding the building blocks, the fundamental forces that are at play, and the numerology behind them, really, and the importance of the geometry and the mathematics. It feels to me that, as humans, we have a two-handed ability. We have the ability to generate awareness but we also have action and the potential for action. So I think on the word responsibility, kind of what it means to have awareness. And if you understand the math behind, and if you use that in forms of prediction or thinking about life and what you want to work towards, how much is important to act intentionally on, and what is the responsibility there? I was also thinking of Aman and his paper, which I quickly read. And he talks about type 1 and type 2 learning, kind of this idea of type 1 being this instinctual, intuitive way of being, versus type 2, which is very empiric and intellectual minded. And there's this nice idea that the gears are working in the background, and if you cultivate awareness, you don't have to understand intellectually everything that's going on. That could kind of drive you crazy if you tried to put everything in a box and check it off and make it work properly. The type 1 learning, this idea of the gnosis of knowing, right? Smelling and hearing being the same, this process of immediacy of being, and that those things can kind of work for you as long as you are on the path of cultivating awareness. So that's that's kind of what I came to just listening as you continue to talk about playfulness and the cosmic game of elevating to that level.
Excellent.
And yeah.
Max, how about letting Peigee answer the questions?
Yes, please, yes.
If I understand your question correctly, is about how to, in one way you understand the universe, you see that the mass is everywhere, but on the other hand, you how to utilize this mass, how to utilize understand the law, and then live your life in a way that you want to, apply this math. The book itself is emphasized about Wu Wei, meaning, if you are really have a desire to be motivated, including, you want to utilize those math, you want to do something. It's about the motivation. Now, you do that. The book is telling you, you're gonna label yourself. Now, so I think people may easily to read the book as the Lao Tzu in favor of you just follow the nature, do nothing. I think that's not what the Lao Tzu was saying. Lao Tzu is simply pointed something that people are not realize. But at the same time, I feel as an individual, it's not only understand the entirety, the totality, but you do need to live an individual life. When it comes to live our individual life, I do feel you can choose live the way you like, particularly if you want to utilize some sort of the math or the law of the nature you have observed. It's fine. It's just that you are going to that direction, play that role. But good to know that when you engage that intellect, never forget about who is the true master. That is the Tao, that is the awareness. You need to always be guided by that. Always don't deviate too far away, right? And that's my that's my thinking right now. I'm not too fussy about whether this is a follow the Tao, this is not follow Tao, but rather acknowledge I was born. I'm born in such an individual role. I will live that role, but at the same time try to go along with the Tao as much as I can. You know what I mean? The book was talking about the sage, talking about the holy man. It is the ideal situation when you one is truly along with the Tao. Then basically it follows what the Tao as a model does. But I feel the reality, we are living our individual life. Inevitably, we will engage our intellect. We will need to eat. And particularly when we need to eat, we will subject others to sacrifice. So inevitably, the karma, the negative karma will be collected in a way. That's the reason why we have limited life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate your answer. And this idea of the awareness being king is beautiful. And Shrikant, can I just say one more thing?
Yes.
Just really quickly. Thank
Very
you so much.
quickly, because I want to make sure that we have chance for Nick and Joe to.
Absolutely. I'll try and be as quick as I can. This idea of playfulness, I think going back to like how I play with my dog, we only have silence. You know, there's so much we can learn from nature, and not to forget this yin energy is alive and it is silent in so many ways. When you walk in the forest, you know, the getting back to almost a telepathic way of being, to me is the ideal. And then I just wrote one thing in the comments. I wrote this idea of the great vessel early on. I don't think anyone saw it, but I want to clarify. I just said that the great vessel never being completed. I think of it as these ancient, the Vizna, like the angelic, almost godlike beings who came down in India through perceived flying machines. There's a lot of anecdotes of energetic beings that are formless. And the vision has always been something of like a star that's constantly imploding and exploding at the same time, that there's an energy. And we've come to know that in quantum physics as a zero-sum energy, a kind of energetic structure. So I think this idea of a higher form of being that we've yet to discover is actually unlocked through movement and stillness simultaneously. And that's all I say. It's in there in the comments, but I just want to clarify. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Max. Next up is Nick. Nick, go ahead. Nick, are you there? Okay. Is Joe there? Okay. Looks like both of them have stepped away. All right. So, Peigee, this was wonderful. Really appreciate, firstly, please, keep coming back. I really appreciate, because what happens is that we are really focused on diving deep into these works, and each person like you who has. Okay, wait a minute. Nick is speaking. Nick, go ahead. Nick, your sound is not working. Can you try again? Can you say something again? Okay.
Hi, can you hear me? No?
Oh, try it again. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Hi, Srikan, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, sorry, apologies. I just want to follow up on this idea of Wu Wei. Maybe Peigee's latest discussion is interesting. We after the reflective meditation, we need to interact in society. So in that context, this I think also Mark asked earlier, how can we, develop a methodology when doing things, but nevertheless still, maintain this Wu Wei philosophy. So I just want to put in a historical footnote that the 18th century economist in France, François Quessenay, I think that's the name. He kind of borrowed the idea of Wu Wei, and he was nicknamed as the Confucius of Europe, but nevertheless developed into a doctrine of laissez-faire. And that doctrine obviously has become a dominant doctrine in the economic thinking and management of the state, etc. At least one of it, and that has yielded a lot of results. And we could criticize, we could this debate, but nevertheless, it's originated in this very idea of the Wu Wei. So I just want to put that in order to inject a bit of a proactive sentiment into the discussion, rather than viewing the Lao Tzu's Wu Wei as very passivity from ancient world.
Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Next up is going to be, let's go with Kwan. If you want to respond to that, you're welcome to do that. Because I then want to go to Joe. Let me see, Joe, what is going on? Others kind of off topic. So okay, all right. Let's go with David, followed by Kwan. David.
Hey, missed that. There we go. Thanks. Yeah, there's a certain, I guess the text feels like there's a polemic here, which is saying there is this sort of difficult to discuss, so let's say mystical, true nature of things, Tao. And we're not going to spell it out in a way that you would learn it in school. So it's going to become apparent to you because everything we're saying is going to have some truth in it. And so it's, as you confront all this, there's something revealed to you in this process. And I think you have to approach that a certain way, and we're calling it child's mind, and I think that's accurate and good. But I don't think there's anything we need to take as we're doing that from this that opposes the use of intellect. I think the intellect is still, and virtue is still something which may require activity to acquire and is worth pursuing and is part of enhancing life. And this is not in opposition to Tao. But, if that's all you're doing, you're missing. So this is saying, don't think that going to school is going to bring it to you. So that it's pointing to children and saying, look, even the children are more in touch with it at times than you are. So the lesson isn't no learning is taking you away from it. It's you're distracting from it is making your learning into a hazard, right? I think so that it's too easy to put down learning and training and discipline. And I'm saying that, developing virtue is still part of this. And, it's easier to be hostile to it because, we can put it down and say, see, it's an ineffable, undescribable knowledge. But I think there's room that, as you appreciate this kind of knowledge, actually developing virtuous capabilities, meaning finer modes of expression, more accurate modes of action, enabling yourself enables a higher degree of participation. So you can be both pliant and active. You've developed a higher degree of sensitivity, and you also have a greater awareness of what you're capable of, more potentials, more possibilities, more paths to take. And so when you're just open to the paths, it's like being there with your eyes open. So, I maybe my hearing, as I listen to some of the discussion, it seems to almost be shoving aside the development of virtue, the development of intelligence. Yeah, we laugh at some of these half-intelligent steps that people take because we can see it's more than that. I just want to say, I think it's the full picture. We have some reverence for learning and for the clearness of the sky, but that's not everything. There's a potential for cloudiness, and we know we're going to have that sometimes too. So that's all. Thanks.
Excellent, David. Great point. What I would say is that Lao Tzu's greatness is that he's pointing us back to the power of intuition, and telling us don't lose intuition. Intuition is a fundamental thing for us. I mean, I'm spending a lot of time studying the New Testament, and the way in which logos is treated in the New Testament, a combination of consciousness and words used with full consciousness. And that kind of use of words that we're talking about in Gospel of John is consonant with the Tao. What I think Lao Tzu is criticizing is something where you fall in love with the products that you're making, so that you're using it, the spirit of it is gone. The spirit of the words is gone, and you're still kind of, you're being enslaved by your own words. That's what he's criticizing, I think. And I certainly, I'm with you, it's like, it is possible and it is good to have the intuition, the function. I see it as, in Louis Sullivan's terms of form and function. What Lao Tzu is saying, that function is fundamental, and he's right. Function is fundamental. But function expresses itself through forms. And those functionated forms that you're creating are sacred, just like the function is sacred. And they stop being sacred, and they start becoming your masters as soon as you fall in love with them and lose the function, because it's all about function. But in order to function, you need the forms. Does that, David, any follow-up comments?
Yeah, thanks. No, I appreciate the connection with Sullivan and the reflection of how those new creations have sacredness, but can become concrete blocks in a rigidity that you're imprisoned in. That's a very nice image. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up is Kwan. Kwan, go ahead.
Yeah, I am very grateful for David for having made this comment, because I want to say that Lao Tzu gave the answer in the title of the book, okay? Dao De Jing. Okay, so Tao is heaven, meaning the intuition, the absolute reality, and etc. De, as Peigee explained excellently maybe an hour and a half ago, is man. Okay, so I used last time the image of a Gaiwan, a Chinese vessel for making tea, for earth, man, and heaven. Okay, so in the title of the book, okay, it's clear that Lao Tzu was not rejecting the intellect or the sense perception, okay, because Tao is precisely for the higher learning. Tao is how the man would express it in his individual level, as Peigee said, and Ching is precisely the machinery given by the earth. Okay, so the earth in us is our body. So the fact that you have a healthy body would allow the sense of perception to function and the intellect to function. Okay, because what is the first reality of the intellect in a human child? The child is starting to talk around 2 years old for most children. Okay, well, if that children has a working brain and is surrounded by adults speaking an articulated language, that child would automatically speak that language. Okay, so there are stuff that would act automatically. The earth, okay, is given by the body. The precisely is related to what you said, David, the learning of virtues and so on by the morality and so on. But I would say that the ultimate teaching of Lao Tzu is to remind us that there is the heaven that you need not to forget, because most human beings would stop at earth, at man, meaning at Ching and Te, and would not go to Tao, okay, which would make him a complete man, or symbolically represented by the Tai Chi Tu, or by the sixth line of the hexagrams, meaning the six layers of the mind from stage 1 to stage 6. And I would like to take 20 seconds about François Quesnay, the economist of the 18th century. And here I may be joking a little bit. And I'm not mocking you, Nick. I'm in the sense that François Quesnay was a physiocrat, okay? And physiocrat is an economist thinking that all the wealth in a nation comes primarily from agriculture, okay? And he was a guy of the 18th century. Let's not forget that China in the 18th century was either the first economy of the world or the second economy of the world, depending if you count India as the number 1 or China the number 2, but they were very close, okay? And primarily the wealth of China was coming from agriculture at the time, okay? And after you have commerce and industry, of course, but it was primarily agriculture. And François Quesnay was a proponent of the Chinese enlightened despotism. So let's not forget that François Quesnay was working for the King of France, Louis XV, and the King of France were quite close to Chinese enlightened despotism too, because people most of the time forget that because of the French Revolution. But if there is one country in Western Europe which resembles enormously to the Chinese enlightened despotism, it was France under the monarchy. And I stop here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the note. All right, folks. So
is that on the 15th or the 14th? Which Louis?
15. He was the surgeon of Louis XV.
Thank
and
you.
also an economist.
Thank you. Thank you. Folks, this has been amazing. And Peigee, again, welcome. Welcome to this series. And I hope you'll keep coming back. And please plan on reading your translation, and we'll give you time to explain as hope you thought we did this time. We'll continue to do that because we all really, are trying to understand this, and you've spent a lot of effort trying to do that. And you're bringing up points which are new to, which are very original. So really appreciate, appreciate you here. And Quan, thank you very much. It's just amazing. It's like this, this is a great group, and look forward to seeing you 1 week from today. We're doing this every Tuesday at 9 p.m. All right. Bye, everybody. Good night.
I wish to thank you very much. And also Jason, great to meet you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Shrikant. And when you say 9 p.m., you mean Pacific time.
Sorry. My mistake.
No, you don't mean Pacific time.
8 p.m.
8 New York time.
PM, New York time, Eastern time. All right. See you. Bye.